Good evening, all the joinees. Hi, this is Ashi. Welcome to the webinar conducted by NGEN Research. By the time others join in, let us have a look at today's topic. Today, we'll be seeing how to compare the performance of mutual fund with peers and benchmark, understanding rolling return and overlap among the funds, analyzing funds based on risk versus return, and lastly, monthly SIP versus lump sum investment. And at the end, the forum will be open for a Q&A session. Now, this is our NGEN Markets landing page. Before starting with the actual comparison, first, we will load a particular category in the fund section and see multiple ways to onboard these funds in the compare tab. For that, we will be heading towards the funds tab, that is the fourth tab on the platform. So this is basically the screener that we have provided. Now you can filter the funds based upon the AMC, or you can filter it based upon the categories. There are 4 buckets that we have provided, which are the asset classes, and within which you can find multiple categories. There is no limit as to how many categories you can load on the screener. Now for today's webinar, let us take small cap fund as an example. So once you click on small cap fund, within the bracket, you can see that there are total 29 small cap funds. Once you click on the cross, all these 29 funds will get loaded right here. As you can see, 29 results. Let us now narrow this down by applying certain filters. Now let us apply the very first filter of minimum AUM. Let us say we only want those small cap funds which have minimum AUM of 2,500 CR. So we will just enter 2,500. And then we will click on apply. Once you click on apply, you can see that the result has reduced to 20 such funds. Now let us apply one more filter, that is minimum age. Let us take minimum age as 5. Once you click on 5 and you click on apply, then you can see that there are total 17 such funds that are fitting into the category or the filters that we have applied. Now here, you can see that there are certain blank columns. This is because these are the parameters that are relevant to debt as a category. Now, how to get rid of these columns? In preset column view, all you have to do is just click on this drop down and select equity columns. So all the parameters or the details that are relevant to equity as an asset class will get loaded right here. Now the data that you see here in the screener since the inception of the fund, specifically Sharpe ratio, value at risk historic, implied, Sortino, and standard deviation. Now let us take Sharpe as a parameter. Sharpe is risk adjusted return. It tells us how well the fund was able to perform in comparison to the risk that it has been taken. Once you click on the word Sharpe, it gets loaded in descending order. And we can see that the highest Sharpe ratio is generated by L-Device, that is 1.24%. And once again, when you click on the word Sharpe, you can see that Quant is having a least Sharpe ratio of about 0.36. Please note this data is since the inception of the fund. The next parameter that we can take into consideration is standard deviation. It tells us how deviated is the return of the fund from the average rate of return. Once you click on the word standard deviation, we can see that the highest standard deviation is generated by Sundaram Small Cap Fund, that is 21.26%. And the least standard deviation is by Axis Small Cap Fund, which is 14.4%. Again, the data is since the inception. Now, if you want to have a fair comparison, it is important that you load these funds in the compare tab from a common start date. Now let us see what are the multiple ways in which you can onboard these funds towards the compare tab. The very first way is by clicking on this icon which states add to compare. So once you click on this, Axis and SBI will get loaded in the compares tab. as you can see right here. The next way of loading the funds in the Compare tab is by clicking on Add Top 50 to compare. So once you click on this, all these 17 funds will get loaded in the Compares tab. The third way of adding a fund or the stock in the main list of Compare tab is by manually searching for the name of the fund or the stock in the Add Security tab that is being provided. Now here, you can not only compare the funds, but you can also compare the fund with the indices or historical category average by searching for it in the Add Other item. Now let us add a relevant indices for the same, that is Nifty Small Cap 250. Now, as you can see, in the blue column, the index has been loaded. So these were the different ways in which you can load the fund in the Compares tab. Now let us see that if you want to remove a particular fund from the Compares tab, what you have to do is just you have to click on this icon which states remove from the compare. So once you click on this, that particular funds get removed. Now please note that the data here is since the inception because we have not yet selected a common start date. Now to select a common start date, in the returns column, all you have to do is click on this settings icon. Now let us analyze this data for the period of last 5 years, that is 2019, 1st July. And once you click on go, there is a prompt stating that a custom start date is selected. Now let us take CAGR as a parameter. It tells us the average rate of return that a fund has generated on an annual basis. Once you click on the word CAGR, it gets arranged in descending order. Here, we can see that the highest CAGR is being generated by Quant Small Cap Fund, which is about 42.72%. In comparison to index, which is giving a CAGR of 27.57%. What we can conclude is that all these funds that are right above the index are able to generate a higher CAGR in comparison to the index itself. Now, this is the data for last 5 years. The remaining 3 funds, that is HDFC, Sundaram, and Aditya Birla, were not able to beat the benchmark when we take CAGR as a parameter, again for the period of last 5 years. Next is standard deviation. So higher the standard deviation, higher is the volatility, which means higher is the risk of that particular fund. Now here we can see that though Quant Small Cap Fund was able to generate a higher CAGR, it is generating a standard deviation which is quite high in comparison to its peers, which is about 21.60%. And again, when you sort this, we can see that the least standard deviation is generated by SBI Small Cap Fund, which is about 15.42%, whereas index is having a standard deviation of 20.14%. So this was the data in the return column for the past 5 years. Next is relative return. Right now, there is no data as you can see. So for that, what we'll do is we'll click on this checkbox, which is right here. So once you click on this checkbox, the data gets generated. Please note that by default, the benchmark that is selected is Nifty 50. So we'll select the relevant one, that is Nifty Small Cap 250. Please note that the index that you have selected for return column should be same to what you will be entering for the relative return column as well. And the start date should also be similar to the returns column. So for return column, we have selected the date of 1st July 2019 is something what we'll be entering right here. That is 1st July 2019. So moving towards the month of July. So 1st July 2019. And accordingly, the data will pop up. The very first parameter that we are going to see is cumulative excess. So once this gets sorted, this is for the period of again 5 years. It tells us the extra return that it has generated over the benchmark. So Quant is generating a cumulative excess of 258.77%. The next parameter that we are going to see is beta. Beta tells us how risky a particular fund is. So beta of index will always be 1. Now here, again, as we are able to see that the highest beta among the funds is given by quant small cap fund, which is about 0.90. Though it was generating a higher cumulative return in comparison to its peers, the risk that is associated with quant small cap fund is also high. Next, moving on to the two most important ratios, that is up capture ratio and down capture ratio. So up capture ratio tells us how the fund was performing when the market was in bullish trend. Once you sort this, we can see that the highest up capture ratio is given by quant small cap fund, which is about 121.55. So higher the up capture ratio, the better it is. Down capture ratio is exactly opposite of the up capture ratio, which tells us how the fund was performing when the market was in bearish trend. So lower the down capture ratio, the better it is. Now, once you sort this, we are able to see that the least down capture ratio is given by Axis Small Cap Fund, which means this is the most conservative small cap fund. Now, let us analyze Axis Small Cap Fund's up capture and down capture ratio in detail. So this is the single fund analysis for the period of last 5 years. Now here you can see that up capture ratio of the Axis Small Cap Fund is about 70.92. If we take Nifty Small Cap 200 up 250's up capture ratio to be 100, what we can say is when the market was in bullish run, so when Nifty was up by 10%, our fund, that is Axis Small Cap Fund, was up by just 7%. Once you click on this eye icon, you will be able to see a month-on-month bifurcation for the same. Here, we can see for Jan 2020, the return of the fund was about 8%, whereas the return of the benchmark was about 7%. The next data that it has given out is for the month of April 2020. Now, the month Feb and March is not reflected in the up capture ratio. This is because in these 2 months, the benchmark was generating a negative return, which will be reflected in the down capture ratio. So up capture ratio takes only those months into consideration wherein the benchmark was generating a positive return. Now on the top, you can see the annualized series of the entire data. Now here you can see that the fund was generating a return of 21.07 and the benchmark was generating a return of 100.21. So once you divide this, it comes up to 70.92. Down capture ratio is exactly opposite of up capture ratio. Down capture ratio tells us how the fund was performing when the market was in bearish trend. So lower the down capture ratio, the better it is. Similarly, higher the up capture ratio, the better it is. So if we take 100 to be the benchmark, what we can conclude is if the benchmark was down by 10%, our fund was down by only 5.8%. Now, once you click on this eye icon, you will be able to see the month-on-month bifurcation. The 2 months, that is Feb, March, is something that has been reflected right here. For Feb, we can see that the benchmark was generating a negative return of 7.2. And in the month of March, again, the benchmark was generating a negative return of 39. This, on the top that you can see, is the annualized entire series. So for fund, it is 29.27, that is a negative return. And for benchmark, it is 49.78. So once you divide this, it comes up to 58.8. Now the next thing that we will be analyzing is holding columns, which is represented in blue. Now this gives you the detail about how the allocation is made towards large cap, mid cap and small cap, and what is the allocation made towards the equity percentage. Now, in case if there would have been any kind of investment that would have been there towards the derivative, it would have been reflected in the short percentage. But as of now, there's no investment towards derivative made by any of these funds. That is the reason the net equity percentage remains equal to the equity percentage. Now, the next parameter that we would be analyzing is rolling. Now, this is for 260 days rolling window, which is basically 1 year working period. Starting from 15th Feb 2019, the end date is 4th July 2024. On the very first column, you can see the name of the fund. The second is the average, which is basically the average rolling return. That is the average of the data points in the graph. Next is vol, which is basically the volatility of the fund. Next is high. High indicates the positive return or the highest return that the fund has generated between the start date and the end date. The low tells us about the negative return that these fund has generated. Now here, we can see that the highest return was generated by quant small cap fund, which was about 118.80%. Whereas the low that it went down by, or the negative return that it has generated, is about 55.31%. Next is range. Range tells us the swing between the high and the low. So higher the range, highly uncertain that particular fund is. Now here, we can see that the highest range is given by quant small cap fund, which is about 173.4%. You can conclude that this particular fund is highly uncertain. Next is positive percentage, which tells us number of time a fund was able to generate a return which was above 0%. So let us sort this and see which fund was giving a highest positive percentage. So here we can see SBI Small Cap Fund, 92.84% of the time, this particular fund was able to generate which was above 0%. Now let us change the rolling window for 2 years working period. So if we multiply 260 into 2, it comes to 520. So let us analyze the data for 520 rolling window. And then we'll click on run. Once the data gets generated, you can see the difference that the low has turned out to be positive. All these funds have the lowest return, that is in terms of positive. And the positive percentage is 100, which basically means 100% of the time, these funds were able to generate a return which was above 0%. Now, what we can conclude is, as the holding period increases, there are chances that the fund will generate a better result. Now, let us analyze this for a particular fund and understand in detail about the rolling window. For 520 days, let us take Kotak Small Cap Fund as an example. So this is the single fund analysis, as you can see. We'll move towards the rolling tab. Now here, for 520 days, we can see that the average, that is the average rolling return that it has generated, is 58.90%. The volatility that it is facing is 27.32%. The highest that it went by was about 121.29%. And the lowest that it has generated is 15.89%. This is for absolute. Let us change it to analyze and see. So here we can see that the highest return for 520 days rolling window is about 60.64%, whereas the lowest that it has generated is 7.92%. Let us now plot this on graph. I just click on 780 rolling and 260 rolling. Now here the focus is only towards 520 days rolling window. Now, if we just drag this and try to plot, we can see in April 4th, 2022, the highest return was generated was about 60.64%. Now, what we can see is that if the investor would have stayed investment exactly 520 days prior to this date, this is the return that it would have received, which is about 60.64%. Now, let us try to plot in the lowest return and find out in which month it was facing this particular return. So if we zoom in, we can see that around 7th November, exactly at 6th November 2023, it was generating the lowest return of about 7.92%. Now, let us analyze the next parameter. So for that, we'll head towards the NGEN Markets tab. The next parameter that we will be looking towards is risk versus return. Now, this is the risk versus return scatter plot. The x-axis consists of risk and the y-axis consists of return. Now, this is divided into 4 equal quadrants. On left-hand side, on top, you can see low risk, high return. On bottom, you can see low risk, low return. On right hand side top, you can see high risk, high return, and bottom, you can see high risk, low return. Once you click on show data labels on chart, it comes up with the name of the funds. Now here, let us compare Quant Small Cap Fund with Nippon India Small Cap Fund. We can see that Quant Small Cap Fund is generating a higher return but is taking a higher risk, whereas Nippon India is taking a moderate risk and generating a moderate return. Let us now compare Nippon India with Aditya Birla SL Small Cap Fund. We can see that though they are taking similar amount of risk, that is Nippon India is taking a risk of 18.49, whereas Aditya Birla is taking somewhere near about 18.69%. Still, the return generated by Nippon is higher in comparison to Aditya Birla. The return that Nippon India is generating is 31%, whereas Aditya Birla is generating a return of 21.53%. So Nippon India can stand as an alternate to Aditya Birla because though as they are taking similar amount of risk, still Nippon India is able to generate a higher return. Now let us move on to the next parameter, that is position overlaps. Position overlap tells us the minimum common holding between the two funds. Now here in the color code, you can see that the range of this overlap is between 0 to 40%. Once you hover on a particular percentage, now let us compare Edelweiss with that with Invesco. We can see that the overlap percentage is about 33%. Once you click on this, you will be able to see where is this overlap percentage of 33 coming from. Now, Edelweiss Small Cap and Invesco India both are having JB Chemicals in its portfolio. Edelweiss is holding about 2.63%, whereas Invesco is holding about 1.68%. Now, the minimum out of this two is the one that is taken into final consideration, that is 1.68. Now, let us see Edelweiss and Invesco in relation to BSC. Here we can see that Edelweiss is holding about 1.06%, whereas Invesco is holding about 2.05%. And the minimum out of this two is the one that is taken into final consideration, that is 1.06%. Now, the next parameter that we will be looking into is the monthly SIP. Now, let us change the installment amount to 10,000, keeping the start date as 5th July 2019 and the end date 4th July 2024. Once you click on Run SIP, you will be able to analyze what is the final value that each of this fund would generate if you make an installment of 10,000 between a particular start date and the end date. Here, the start date is 5th July 2019 and the end date is 4th July 2024. Now, let us sort this and see the highest XIRR generated is by which fund. So we can see that XIRR generated by Quant Small Cap Fund is about 50.16%. The invested value is 6 lakh and the final value that it gives out is more than 19 lakh. Now, if you want to have a detailed analysis for a particular fund, all you have to do is just click on this piggy bank option, which is right here. So once you click on this piggy bank icon, you will be able to see a monthly SIP breakdown right here. Also, you can find a graphical representation for the same. So we can see the XIRR is about 50%, the installment made is 60, the invested amount is 6 lakh, and the final value that it has generated is more than 19 lakh. You can also generate a PDF for the same by clicking on this PDF icon, which is right here. So all our PDFs and PPT are co-branded. So on the left-hand side, instead of our logo and name, you would be able to see your company's name and logo. So this is for Quant Small Cap Fund. As you can see, the start date and the end date. The monthly installment amount that we had entered, that is 10,000. 60 installment with total invested amount is 6 lakh and the final value is more than 90. This is the graphical representation for the same. And you can also see the monthly SIP breakdown. Starting from 5th July 2019 till the end date, that is 4th July 2024. Now this was for monthly SIP. Now let us say if you want to make a lump sum investment. So for that, we will head towards the point-to-point tab, which is the second last tab. Now here, let us say that you are making a lump sum investment of 10 lakh rupees in each of these funds. So what is the final value that this fund would generate? So let us say that 10 lakh is invested in Access Small Cap Fund for a period of 1 Jan 2019 till the end date, that is 28th June 2024. So more than 37 lakh is something that would be generated. Now this data you see right here is in terms of amount. Now if you want to check it in terms of percentage, all you have to do is just select this CAGR option. Now if you want to have a look at the data for a period of less than an year, for that you will select absolute as an option. Now let us create a scenario that was for the election time. Now all these 5 buckets are completely editable. So let us create a scenario for the election period, which was 3rd June 2024 till 4th June 2024. The Indian market was able to witness the bloodbath. So that is the reason the return that you can see here is negative. So the highest negative return was generated by Quant Small Cap Fund in this particular period, starting from 3rd June till 4th June 2024. Also, you can find a chart view for the same by clicking on this icon, which is right here, that is show comparison chart. So this is the absolute return comparison. The highest return, that is the highest negative return, was generated by Quant Small Cap Fund. Now let us have a look at certain reporting option. Also, you can take a screenshot for the same. So let us take a screenshot for this particular chart. By the time, let me tell you certain reporting option that is being provided in the platform. The first option that we have provided in the compare section is the PPT option. Now, these PPTs are completely editable. In case if you want to add a particular parameter, you can do so right here. So once this is being generated, this is how the PPT looks like. So all our PDFs and PPT are completely editable. Now this is, you can see the age, AUM, expense ratio, price of the funds that we have loaded on the main list. The parameters, risk versus return scatterplot, the exposure or the allocation towards large cap, mid cap, small cap, overlap, price-based comparison report, month-on-month, year-on-year return, calendar-wise return, and the rolling volatility. And this is for 520 days rolling window. Now, let us add the scenario that we have just checked that was for the election time. So we'll add a new slide here. That is the master slide that we have provided. And I have taken a screenshot for the same, which was saved, which was downloaded in the folder. So we'll just click on the insert option that has been provided, and then we'll select picture, this device. And as it was saved in the downloads, we'll click on insert. And this is how you can add the picture in the slide. So any parameter that you want to include, you can easily do so because these are completely editable. And it comes with co-branding, as mentioned earlier. On the left-hand side, instead of our name and logo, you would be able to see your company's and name and logo right here. So this is it from my side. The forum is now open for a Q&A session.
Madam, thank you very much. It was got a good and outstanding presentation what you did and comparative analysis आपने दिखाया. My question is basically you build it such a nice and very loaded with you can say system. How we can find out the next theme of the investing, where the value is lying in the index or in the you can say a segment, and how we can allocate the funds to for the clients. Do we have some kind of this kind of some value approach into the system?
Hi, Shots. This is Prajakta. So typically, if you're referring to the style of investment, that are their growth style, or for that matter, value style, that is not something that's available on the platform, because that's not something that the AMCs are declaring, right? Secondly, the platform analyzes on the basis of historical data, right? If you
So
would
my
even
question,
see.
I agree. Just sorry to interrupt you. So my question is basically pertaining to that only, because you are showing all the past data, and that is good. Fine, like you are showing the past data, we can analyze it. That is all good. All of done. But like today, when I'm suggesting the funds or you can say stocks to my clients, it is not basically that what the past data that particular fund is having. Because if you can ask me today, Deep sir, will you going to suggest this fund small cap to your clients? My answer is no. So,
Absolutely, sir. That is exactly what I'm trying to say. So
uh,
typically, this is on the base of history, and that is what we can see, right? In the entire analysis that we saw, this is in fact the post-mortem that we are doing, right? We could see in every single tab, Quant was a fund that generated definitely higher return, but that took it at very high levels of risk, right? In the main list, when we are looking at the standard deviation, that is one such fund which had the highest standard deviation, right? In the rolling returns tab, when we checked, it is a fund that had highest uncertainty, and this has been the case in the last 5 years as well, right? Whenever we used to show, this is one of the fund that in fact had the highest standard deviation, right? It was ultimately a call that, okay, if an investor is extremely aggressive, he is okay with taking in that level of risk, fine, you get the returns that Court has generated. But as we just discussed, we have a better alternative in, let's say, Axis, which of course the returns are less, but at least it's the most conservative small cap, right? So that's definitely a subjective call. The platform will not be able to tell you that, okay, this is what will happen in future, because the historical data is the best bet that we have. Secondly, your question was with respect to sectors, right? Where can I know what sectors I should be investing in? So for that, we have something called as in the markets tab, you can add different sectors, right? So you go to the markets tab. Currently speaking, let's say Nifty 50 is what is the broad-based index. So let's say you want to add in a Nifty FMCG. Please click on NSE indices, Ashi. Right. And let's click on Nifty FMCG, Nifty IT, Metal, Pharma. Let's say these five. And let's change the start date to something as post-COVID. So maybe 2020 December onwards or something like that. Right? So after in this time of almost 5 years or almost 4 years, which of these sectors has actually generated a better return? You can check that by clicking on rebase option, right? And you map this against a broad-based index like a Nifty. To add Nifty right here, you simply click on Nifty 50 and it will get plotted. You see Nifty Metal in the same time period of 5 years that we are analyzing, 4 years, it has given a 235 return, 235% return. On the other hand, the broad-based index, Nifty 50, has just given an 85% return. So all of this is available, or rather possible, only on the basis of historical data. Futuristic predictions, honestly, that is not something that's there on the platform. It's very difficult to do as well, but you can definitely see the trend, right? If you want to have a look at, okay, let's say you are kind of want to have a trend analysis on all the large cap funds. You want to see which stocks, or for that matter which sectors these large caps are bullish on, or for that matter mid caps are bullish on, right? Then you can refer to our holdings analysis. That is pretty robust that way, and you can actually understand where is the AMC money going. Accordingly, you can understand a trend analysis and actually pick up stock ideas as well. I will attempt to explain that in a bit. So in the holdings analysis, you go to sector changes. In this case, what we are really meaning to say is all the sectors taken together in the equity asset class as a category, all the mutual funds. We are not going to look at all the small cap funds, let's say, because we analyze small caps today, right? So check funds with SEBI category, just put small cap, please. Right. Now, what we are trying to say here is, if we consider the entire universe of small cap funds, that's 28 small cap funds, as on 31st of May, which was the sector that the entire small cap funds were bullish on? It was capital goods, non-electrical. Right. Of course, please note, do not focus on the 30th June column, because the AMCs are yet to declare all of the data. So you can see number of funds, only 3. Please focus on 31st May itself, because we are in the cycle of updating, right? So the highest, or the heavily weighted, or for that matter, the sector which the AMCs are extremely bullish on, is capital goods, non-electrical. Next is IT software. Next is consumer durables. You can simply sort it on the basis of highest to lowest. This is how you can understand the trends of AMCs investing in different sectors, and accordingly you can take calls.
All right.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
So for mutual fund analysis, for how much time we can get the data of risk versus reward?
You can get it from inception of the respective funds, but in this case, what happens is, if you're checking this in the compare section, Ashi, can you please go to the compare section? Right. So in this case, just sort it on the basis of age, please. Right. So the youngest fund that we have here is a 5-year-old fund. That's why when you go to risk versus return, it will hard stop you to go beyond 5.40 years, right? Look at that. It is stopping you to go beyond 15th of Feb. That's because the youngest fund in the list is 5.40 years old. If you want to go beyond the time, you'll have to remove the younger funds, right? And then you can go back in time. We have data for all the mutual funds since 1996. So it's just that in the compare section, which is the youngest fund that you're analyzing, it will take by default its start date. If you remove that fund from the list, it will let you go back in time as well.
Okay, thank you. One more query.
Yes.
Is there any method like just like in market section we have stocks of different sectors, like for particular sector we will just directly go to the compare section. Like we can
No. So what all stocks are covered in those sectors, that is not something that's readily available in the compare section. However, there is a way that you can do that. Please go to the markets tab, and in the stocks subpart, right? After overview, there's a stocks subpart. So basically, what you can simply do is, you can filter it by sector, right? 1 second, let this get loaded, and then you will be able to see all the stocks that are there in that particular sector. If you click on finance, let's say,
like
right?
can't we load the all the stocks of a sector into compare section instead of doing it manually?
No, honestly, that as of now is not possible. You can view that right here. You cannot load all the sectoral stocks in one single go in the compare section.
Okay. So we have to enter the manually all the securities to compare the securities in a particular sector.
Correct. For mutual funds, you can do that. For mutual funds, we already have it. For stocks, we've not explored that option yet. We can note that down as a feedback. We will check if that's possible.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, can I ask a question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Okay, just to take off from the previous question itself, is there somewhere wherein we can analyze as to what the AMCs have sold, like, the top 5 sales of which stocks, or the top 5 additional purchases or new purchases that they've made for the previous month?
Sure, that's possible to do. However, you can do that on a fund level and not on the entire AMC level, right? So
Okay.
if you load a fund, for example, we have Kotak Small Cap loaded already. You go to the asset allocation tab. In asset allocation, please go to position changes by month, right? So in that, as compared to the previous month, what were the largest increases, largest decreases? If there were completely new positions that were added, will be available right here. Now this, we have it for the last 12 months, month on month. You can see a drop down right there. So this is as compared to April, what was the changes in the month of May? That is what we are showing you. If you now choose, let's say 31st of Jan, then you'll be able to see as compared to the month of December, what were the changes that were made in the month of January.
Right.
Additionally, if you want to look at the trend of stocks, or for that matter, sectors that are invested on a fund level, then you can go to positions over time. In positions over time, Archie, can you please mute Mr. Gagan Gupta for a minute? Yeah, all right. So now, in this case, you see positions over time. This is of course by security. Let it be by security. For example, Blue Star. For example, Blue Star, right? So in Blue
Right.
Star, you see the percentage as compared to April, it has increased from 3.30 to 3.35. Now, this could be because of two reasons. One is either actual increase in number of shares of Blue Star by the fund, or it is because of mark to market of gains of that particular stock, meaning the stock prices have increased. Now, how will you check that? There's an option in the drop down. You simply click on the drop down and you say shares in lakhs. The moment you do that, it will get changed. Now we'll again have to locate Blue Star. It's right there. So you see, there is actually a reduction in the number of shares, right? Shares in lakhs have reduced from 32.65 to 32.52. They've sold some shares, but Blue Star share price would have increased. That's why you could ultimately see an increase in the percentage holding. And you can, in fact, right away locate or rather load Blue Star in a new tab and check this trend, right? So that's definitely possible. So this is something that you can do.
Got it. So basically, we can do it at a fund level
Fund
only,
level.
but not at a sector level. Like as a small cap sector, what they've added overall.
Yeah, on the sector level
That
also you can
is
do
possible.
on
That is, yeah.
equity on the holding analysis. Prajakta, if you could just tell the holding analysis.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So you can definitely do that on a sector level. That's available in the fund section, holdings analysis, right? So you go here in the holdings analysis tab, as we were just discussing. Now what we have taken is, we have taken all the small cap category, right? And all the funds from small cap category are shown up. Please focus on the 31st May column, because we are in the process of updating it for 30th of June, right?
Sure.
So in this case, if we see as on 31st of May, the sector that was heavily weighted, or rather extremely bullish small cap funds, were in the sector of, I think, finance. Let's sort this on the basis of descending order. So it was finance, right? So some 6.31% was into finance as a sector, right? And if you simply click on that, you'll get a list of all the funds that were holding into finance sector. You can sort it either on the basis of percentage or on the basis of amount as well.
Okay.
Amount meaning Quant Small Cap, for example, has 2790 crore of its AUM invested into finance as a sector. This is what this means.
Okay.
All right. Similarly, if you also want to have a look quickly at, let's say, all the mutual funds holding on to particular stock, we again have a very good functionality which is called as equity holdings.
Yeah.
Right? You just type in the name of a stock. Let's say, let's say, for example, 197, right? That's Paytm holding company. If you want to have a look at, just type 197, please. Space 97. No, 97 in numerics. Right there. Okay, so this is Paytm, and then you can see as of 31st of May, 1,653 crores was invested across 58 funds into this particular stock. Right? Which was the fund that had highest? So that was Mirai Asset Focused. It had 2.38% of its portfolio into that particular stock. That amounts to 188 crore, right? So this is available definitely.
Okay. Okay. But in this specific thing, we can't see the change which has happened in 198 from the previous month. Let's say from April to May, we can't see that. Okay.
You can do that. You can do that. For that, you'll have to go to stock changes. Ashi, can you please go to stock changes? Yeah. And now 197, I think, is a small cap stock. So from the drop down, just change it to small cap and Control F kar lena. Just do Control F and search 197. Once this is loaded. Yeah. right there. So this is 197. So this is the trend month on month of investments into this particular stock by all the mutual funds taken together, all the mutual funds from the equity asset class, right? So I think the entire news happened right there. So as compared to Jan, you see there's a drop by 50% in the month of Feb, right? 1.23%, say 0.54, and after that it has been stable around the same percentage. Right? So you can definitely also you can simply click on that and have a detailed analysis. Just click on anything, yeah, and you can see which all mutual funds. Please do not click on June because we are in the process of updating. Just koi bhi pehle wala month le lo, please, Ashi.
Okay.
Right there. So that can be done.
Got it. Okay, this helps. Thank you, Prajakta.
Thank you. Any more questions? Please let us know.
Sorry, another question from my side. We saw the monthly
Yes.
SIP part. Could you
Yes.
just run through what is that statement analyzer option and the charting option?
Oh, sure, absolutely. So the statement analyzer option is typically to upload your client's eCAS file onto the platform. So when the moment you click on that, if you have a client eCAS or for that matter your own eCAS, that has to be NSDL, CDS or CAMS eCAS, you can simply choose a file and upload that file, put in the file password, which is generally the PAN number, and then click on check file. The moment you do that, the file will get processed and it will show something like that on the platform, right, on the right hand side, right? Once it is processed entirely, you can then run or rather convert that to a portfolio and run a detailed portfolio analysis on the fly on this particular eCAS. We'll show you that in a bit. Ashi, can you please go back to NGEN Markets? Go to the portfolio section, please. Add a new portfolio. Load statement analyzer and click on the plus icon. So all the components of that particular eCAS will get processed like this. You can simply click on create and then click on run. That is how the detailed portfolio analytics will run on the platform. So that's one of the ways of onboarding a portfolio onto NGEN Markets. Right. Secondly, I think you were asking about charting. Charting tool lets you do technical analysis on various parameters on not just stocks, but also mutual funds and indices for that matter, right? Can you please click on that, Ashi? Right. So this is the tool that we've integrated. And you can run Bollinger Bands, let's say, on a particular fund, right? You want to, try to do the entire Bollinger Band analysis on, let's say, PGIM India mid-cap opportunities, right? You simply load that fund from that checkbox. Yeah, mid-cap, right? Once you load that, the entire price series will get added. Go to the first option on the left, yes, indicators, and you have a host of them, right? In this case, we are going to add, let's say, an RSI, right? Just search for RSI, please. Click on that and please click on add. The moment it gets added, you will see another line chart appearing, and the levels to note here are typically 30 and 70, right? If the level is crossing the line in purple that you can see, that is RSI indicator. If that typically is crossing 70, that means it is overbought position and the NAV is likely to come down, right? You see after 76, there has been a drop in the NAV and that is visible right there. If you go a little ahead in time, there's a drop in NAV, right? Now, after that drop, Ashik, can you go a little bit forward? Yeah, stay there. Now you see now the RSI has gone down below 30, which is a support level, meaning that's an oversold position. And after that, it is likely that the NAV will increase. And the increase in NAV will again pull the RSI up to a level of more than 30, basically up to 70. And then this is how predictive power of RSI can be used. You can add Bollinger Bands, you can add DMAs, EMAs, like that.
This is for what time period, Prajakta? How do we figure out? Can we put in a timeline to this?
Yes. Scroll down, please, Ashi. There's a scroller bar right there. So you can adjust the time period. Yeah, definitely.
Got it. Okay. This will be an interesting information to have to see which, historical nav wise, what is the
Absolutely.
probability of correction and stuff. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And you can in fact load the index here as well. I mean, of course, mutual funds, technical analysis is not very popular, but we can start. That is our first step at doing that. You could also load in stocks and indices there, the way we currently have loaded PGIM in the same tab. You could add indices, or for that matter, stocks as well. Right there. Search mutual fund, stocks, or index.
Okay. Sure. This is interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, Prajakta.
Yes, please go ahead. Yes, please go ahead.
Gagan Gupta this side.
Yes.
Yeah, as and when we create any PDF, so whatever the page get created actually, as you rightly said, the left hand side we have our own logo actually, which is already there. But the right hand side we have an NGEN logo. And then, so what my request would be, instead of having that logo on the right hand side of the first page of the PDF actually, so what we can do, we can just put that into the below down actually source engine analytical or whatever you wanted to write actually. The way we have a software of ICRA mutual fund, so the lot of reports that we carry is actually, and when we send it to our investors, so that just right over there, source ICRA mutual fund, MFI Explorer actually.
Correct.
So instead of having that bigger logo on the right hand side actually, so ultimately everybody knows actually this data cannot be compiled by us actually. That has to be compiled by some of the software engineer or software designer actually, or it has been done analytically. All said and done, but it's very on the bigger side of it actually. So if we can write just powered by engine, the way
exactly.
other reports
And in
carry.
fact, correct. The PPT reports, in fact, have the same thing, right? If you, in fact, load a PPT, as we were just showing, it indeed shows it the same manner, right? At the top, it will be your logo. At the bottom, it is powered by NGEN Markets.
Yeah,
right?
but the PDF and all reports that carries right hand side, has that. So my request would be, I have spoken to Debaprata sir also, but he says I will be doing it actually. So, but if you can.
Sure. I think if you've already spoken to him, we've then noted it down. We will definitely check what we can really do about it.
Yeah, please. Yeah. Because a lot of time when we send it to our investors, they said this report is from NGEN. So definitely it is a report from the NGEN only. I cannot have a make of my own actually. But ultimately the credibility that what they carry is of us actually. So that goes down actually. That means the report is supplied by the NGEN and we are just forwarding it to them actually.
Sure, we will definitely have a look at that.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Please let us know.
If there is no more questions, if you could just wind it up, please.
Sure. Ashi, I think there are no more questions. You can close for today.
Thank you everyone for joining in, and you can visit our YouTube channel, as you can see the icon right here, and find a dedicated webinar playlist created. So as of now, there are total 119 videos. Today's video will be released by next week. Thank you everyone and happy weekends.
Thank you, Ashi. Thank you, Prajakta.
Thank you.
Thank you so